have looked at the prophecies to get a little context about what I'm going to try to say here, which might be a little different than what you heard. What are Putin's plans for Ukraine? What I'm about to tell you is radical against the propaganda of the mainstream news companies like CNN, CSNBC, PBS, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and even Fox News. I feel, though, that me, just being a novelist, sitting behind a keyboard, doing my best to make sense of the world around me, I should put my foot forward and post to you the truth of what I believe is happening in the world. It concerns Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, which I see in quite a different light than most of the other commentators giving you their views do. I might get more flack from this podcast, even than I did from the one where I commented on Kim Clement's prophecy that the tiny country of Estonia would one day, I don't know when, bring the mighty Russia to its knees. However, even if I am wrong, I have made some other predictions that have been true, and I've been right at least 80% of the time. I may not be a prophet. I study prophets. I study the Q, research other stuff, and listen to the, usual podcasts out there. I spend a lot of time on it. My wife would say way too much. And I've been around about maybe 80% of the time right. I've made, just time-wise about, what's going to happen. But most of the time it's right. A lot better than Nostradamus anyway. And I'm not saying it's me that does it. I just, watch what's happening and I try to interpret it and then I report it. And being right 80% of the time, though, makes me more accurate than the mainstream news about 80% of the time. When I podcasted that the prophets of the church were predicting a temporary overrun of Canada by communists, naming Trudeau, nobody else was talking about it. Trudeau will be replaced eventually, according to prophets. I did a podcast in early January saying that the Omicron virus was not damaging. I said Omicron is the cure. And Omicron was the cure for COVID. I did not come up with that idea myself, but I researched it and concluded that that camp who believed that Omicron was the cure was correct. I told people not to worry, even though for a couple of weeks after this, the mainstream news and Fauci and the game were prophesying doom for the entire planet from a virus that was hitting people, increasing in fervor all over the world. Everybody's getting sick. We're all going to die. Oh, they did mention that it was not as deadly as the Delta. They did not mention that it not only was not as deadly as the Delta, the Omicron was practically zero as far as deaths go. I mean, they made it sound like it's just kind of, there's millions that died of the Delta, but there will only be a few million that die of the Omicron. No, at the time that it was coming out at first, and they were predicting doom because it was spreading, and it did spread fast, which is good because it's already hit about 83% of the people and made them immune to COVID, and has wiped out COVID. Even Bill Gates has said that. Bill Gates called it the vaccine. But I did that 2 or 3 weeks before, and before the main press finally gave up on it and decided that they were not going to push it anymore. Because they push it for an agenda, not because it's really happening. So they mentioned it's not as deadly as the Delta, but they didn't mention that the deaths from Omicron were practically zero. I think at one time when they were hot on this, there were only 4 deaths in the whole world. Here in late February, even Bill Gates has admitted that the Omicron had wiped out Corona. He did not seem so happy about it, and he predicted another virus headed to your community, to a community near you. I hope it will not arrive soon. I'm counting on that, as the item I ordered from China 2 years ago still has not arrived. So maybe we will get lucky that Bill Gates' predicted illness will be delayed in China as long as my package has been. If not, well, maybe it'll be as ineffective as Windows 8. I usually analyze situations depending on the prediction of prophets in the church, and a lot of them are current prophets. I feel these prophets because the prophets, I feel that these prophets are correct and to be followed because prophets in the last couple of decades have been prophesying prolifically and accurately, more so than any time in recent history. They are more accurate than I could ever be. However, all that I have learned from the prophets on Ukraine is that Ukraine will, during our soon world revival, be a free nation, and that Russia, being out of favor from God, will not win his battle to outgod God. Kim Clement prophesied Vladimir Putin's demise years ago. He predicted that Putin, while out of the country, would hear of news coming from Russia and return to handle the news. And as it happened in the incident in the Bible with another king, he will see eternity in some form or another. Whether he's going to see eternity or be ended, dead, whether now or in the future, I do not know. It could happen now if he is called back to his country and dies. It could be later. I kind of think it'll be later, because I have different views about this invasion of Ukraine. For the time being, what does Vladimir Putin have in store for Ukraine? First, let us go by what he claims his intentions are. Putin claims to be occupying Ukraine to clean up the corruption rampant there. He wants to get rid of the Nazis that could be a threat to Russia. As shown by information from sources such as the emails of Hunter Biden's computer and Joe Biden's interference with the government of Ukraine with the threat to withhold a few billion dollars from the Ukraine if they kept investigating the oil company his son Hunter was pulling millions of dollars a year for working with. And the way Hillary Clinton, John Kerry, and others in the Democratic Party are so concerned for the Ukrainian people, even though they didn't really give a rip for the Afghanistan people. The sellouts have an investment in the Ukraine, there's no doubt about it. Which, it'll be fine with them if Putin manages to do what they think he's going to do and take over the country. Then the evidence against Biden will be erased and all that, because Putin has an agreement with China and they think he's going to help the deep state. And if that happens, they'll be fine. I mean, they'll lose a lot of money from the Ukraine. They have money laundering operations and all sorts of stuff going on in Ukraine. Our politicians do. That's why they send troops everywhere, because they launder money through them. And that will be okay, except if Putin doesn't actually conquer the country. If Putin doesn't conquer it, but just goes in there and cleans it up like he says he's going to, and then leaves, why, that is going to get rid of the deep state operations. Hillary, Biden, Pelosi, all these people that had, there seems to be a big thing about our politicians sending their sons to be the heads of energy companies in other countries like Ukraine. It seems to be a big thing. If you're the son of a politician, all of a sudden you can make millions of dollars, even if you don't have any experience at all sitting on the board of an energy company. If this is really going to devastate them, if Putin breaks his deal with China and doesn't actually conquer the Ukraine yet. He might. I'm thinking maybe not yet. He will sometime try. But Estonia hasn't interfered, and it just doesn't seem like the right time for him to do that. I know he wants to, but I think he has a different mission. Yeah, the word is that our beloved government has been very active in illegal pursuits in Ukraine. The corruption in Ukraine is so widespread that people like Joe and Hunter Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and other anti-American Americans, it seems everyone who has a son has to have a son making millions sitting on the board of a foreign energy company. It's almost as popular as other jobs Democrats and rhinos moonlight in. Selling plutonium to Russia and accepting huge profits from Putin for making a speech or two.